Hello there and welcome to my channel. My name is Alexia and in this video I'd like to talk about what Ashtanga Yoga is. Now, I still remember my first ever Ashtanga class. I was a complete beginner to yoga and I had no idea what to expect. So it was a beginner's class, I think it was the half primary class, and the teacher guided us with a steady and calm voice throughout the practice. And I still remember the moment. It was kind of halfway through and it was just this moment where I thought I was hooked. So it was a physically demanding practice which helped keep my thoughts at bay and it helped really calm my mind. And just this combination was just a winning combination for me. And so ever since then I've been practicing Ashtanga Yoga, and that was 11 years ago. So let's have a look at what Ashtanga Yoga is. Now, the term Ashtanga Yoga derives from two Sanskrit words, Ashta, which means 8, and Anga, which means limb. So together this translates as 8-limbed yoga, as was taught by the great sage Patanjali. Patanjali was the author of the Yoga Sutras, more commonly known as the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Now, these are considered to be the foundational texts of classical yoga philosophy. Now, these 8 limbs are guidelines in order for a yoga practitioner to reach yoga, to reach samadhi, to reach self-realization. And these 8 limbs are 1. Yamas, our behavior and how we conduct ourselves in life. 2. Niyamas, self-discipline and spiritual observances. 3. Asana, the postures practiced in yoga. 4. Pranayama, breath control. 5. Pratyahara, withdrawal or sensory transcendence. 6. Dharana, concentration. 7. Dhyana, meditation. And 8. Samadhi, state of ecstasy. So for anyone looking for a bit more information on the philosophy side of Ashtanga Yoga, then 2 great books that I would recommend are Light on the Yoga Sutras, which was written by Iyengar, and A Handbook for Living Yoga Philosophy. Now, both books are great recommendations for anyone wanting to find out just that much more, and both are linked in the description box below. So when we talk about Ashtanga Yoga as a physical practice, we talk about what was taught by Krishnamacharya, who is known as the father of modern yoga. Now, Krishnamacharya taught Pattabhi Jois, who then brought Ashtanga Yoga to the West, and this is what is practiced today in Ashtanga Yoga studios all over the world. Now, one thing I think is important to point out is that when we look at Ashtanga Yoga as a physical practice, it could be argued that we are just focusing on the 3rd limb of Ashtanga Yoga, of the 8 limbs of yoga. However, for anyone who has a consistent practice, or for anyone who has practiced with an experienced teacher, you might have realized that you can also uncover the other 7 limbs of this Ashtanga Yoga practice throughout your physical practice. So for anyone wondering how demanding Ashtanga Yoga is, think of it this way. If we've got restorative yoga or yin yoga on this end of the spectrum and hatha yoga is somewhere in the middle of the spectrum, then Ashtanga Yoga is at the other end of the spectrum. It's a physically demanding practice which can be modified in ways to make it accessible to beginners and to anyone who maybe has some injuries. So for anyone wondering what happens in an Ashtanga Yoga class, let's say that there is a clear structure to this sequence. Now, Ashtanga Yoga is practiced the same all over the world, and I love telling my students this. Anywhere you go, anywhere in the world that you go to practice Ashtanga Yoga, you will practice the same thing. Of course, with time and with some experience, you will notice that different teachers tend to have a different style of teaching, and maybe they might place some emphasis on different parts of the practice. However, overall, it is the same practice. Now, each Ashtanga Yoga practice starts off with the opening mantra. Now, this is normally done in a call and response manner. So the teacher will chant one line and then the students will repeat this line. Now, what is beautiful about this is that it offers gratitude to the teachers of this practice. Now, beginners tend to just listen. However, with time, it's really nice to join in, because you will notice that by chanting this opening mantra, it really sets the practice apart from a purely physical practice, a purely physical exercise. So in order to look at the specifics of the Ashtanga practice, I'm going to use my chart, which was made by Joey Miles. Now, I've never practiced with him. Maybe one day I will. So let's look at this chart. So as you will see, we start off with the sun salutations. Now in Ashtanga Yoga, we have two sun salutations, the sun salutation A and sun salutation B. We practice each of these 5 times. Okay, so let's have a look at what this first sun salutation is. First movement is inhale, hands up. Second one is exhale, fold forward. Third one, inhale, lengthen, look forward. The fourth one is exhale, lower down. The fifth one is inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Now we normally stay here for 5 breaths, but for now I'll just inhale, look forward, step forward, lengthen, exhale, fold. Inhale, come all the way up, and exhale, we're back here again. And then the second one is also practiced 5 times, though sometimes practiced 3 times. All right, so now it's the second sun salutation. So we begin. Inhale, look up. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, lower down. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, right foot steps. We look up. Exhale and lower. Inhale. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, left foot steps. Exhale. We lower down again. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Now, again, we stay 5 breaths, but for now, inhale, look forward, come forward, lengthen. Exhale, fold. Inhale, all the way up. Exhale, and we're back here again. After the body is warmed up from the sun salutations, we then move on to the standing postures. Now the standing postures, we practice each of these for 5 breaths. And these tend to mainly work on balance, alignment, and gravity-assisted flexibility postures. And then once we're finished with the standing postures, we move on to the seated postures. Now again, we stay for 5 breaths in each of the seated postures. And as you might notice, most of the seated postures focus on forward folds, which help to increase our hamstring flexibility, and also on hip opening. And then we move on to the finishing sequence. So in the finishing sequence, we stay in each posture for about 8 to 10 breaths, depending on the posture. And this is like an energetic culmination. It's like bringing all this dynamic practice to an end in order to prepare our body for Shavasana, for the final relaxation. So something many of my students ask me is, what is the difference between Ashtanga Yoga and something like Power Yoga or Vinyasa Flow? So let's think of it this way. First we had Ashtanga Yoga, so we had this sequence of postures, and then Vinyasa and Power Yoga, they basically take these postures and they put them in a sequence which suits each teacher and each class. So this is the main difference. Ashtanga Yoga follows this set sequence. We don't move things around, we practice it as it is. And so for anyone who maybe wants a bit more information on Ashtanga Yoga as a physical practice, this is one book I would recommend, and it was actually the first ever Ashtanga Yoga book that I bought. Now it's written by David Swenson, and what's great about it is that it offers detailed instructions for each of the poses practiced, and also it offers short form practices. Now for anyone wondering what that is, think of it this way. Ashtanga Yoga, if we want to practice all of this, it takes us approximately 90 minutes, an hour and a half. If you find that you don't have that much time, you can also practice a short form. This could be 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. So this book offers how you can modify your practice if you don't have enough time. So something that sets Ashtanga yoga apart from other types of yoga is that it can be practiced, it can be taught in two different ways. The first way is a lead class, and the second way is a Mysore style class. Now, a lead class is how yoga is commonly taught. The teacher guides the students through the practice. It could be the full primary series, it could be half of the primary series, depending on the level of the students. In a Mysore style class, this is how Ashtanga yoga is generally more often taught. This is where each student starts to learn the poses and they start to move at their own breath. In a Mysore style class, each practitioner practices at their own pace, following this set sequence of postures. Now, for any beginner, I know my students have been like this, for any beginner, this can be quite a scary thing to do. However, you will quickly notice that in a Mysore class, you will learn maybe the first sound salutation, maybe the second sound salutation. You might even learn some of the standing postures. And then the next time you go to the class, the teacher will ask you to repeat this and repeat this until you remember it. And so with time, you will memorize all of the postures. It'll be sooner than you think. So you'll memorize all of the postures. And this is where the true magic becomes. This is where the Ashtanga yoga practice becomes like a moving meditation. Our body knows what to expect. It knows the postures it's supposed to do. And this is where we get to focus on our breath and how we're feeling that day. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope now you know what Ashtanga yoga is. So if you want any more information, check the link in the description box with my article on Ashtanga yoga for beginners. And you can find me on Instagram, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.